It says the significant fluctuations have created an unusual and strenuous amount of uncertainty for buyers and sellers. They say closing the mine is a necessary step while they regroup. Utah Iron Management is one of Iron County's largest employers with hundreds of people working for them. Your money at this moment, the Dow is down 859 points, the S&P down 157, and the NASDAQ is down 623. Coming up, it's heating up today. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time 101.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
Why'd I go to the doctor? One day at the firehouse, I was so lightheaded I could barely stand. Even my crew noticed. Getting checked out was the right call. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com, sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why, when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million-plus products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them. The right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
It's springtime in the Rockies, and it's time to apply Revive Organic Soil Treatment. A Revive treatment with fertilization, aeration, and good watering is the key to building stronger roots for a healthy, lush green lawn. Revive fertilizes and moves water and nutrients deeper into the soil. Take advantage of spring storms with an application of Revive now. Protect yourself from drought later this summer and skyrocketing water costs. With Revive, if you water 2 times a week, it's like watering 4. Apply Revive Organic Soil Treatment today. It works.
Higher taxes, soaring inflation, record low interest rates, and the skyrocketing cost of healthcare. The list goes on. Retiring successfully today is a lot more complicated than ever before. Learn how you can tackle the biggest challenges that you'll face in retirement today. Don't miss a special edition of Retirement Solutions Radio. It's this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, right here on KSL News Radio 1027.
Dave and Debbie.
It's impossible to digest and consume all of the news that's now coming at us through either social media or through web pages or through the radio. Pick what is most impactful in your life and focus on that. And that's what Dave and I do every single morning. We pick those issues that are most important to our listeners and we boil it down so it's digestible. It's simple to understand.
I think we're trying to find the essence of the story. You know, you can't be an expert on all things, but that doesn't mean you can't be curious and really find out more and educate yourself and learn the complexities of an issue. But I think all of us start at ground zero on everything. Ask questions, show that curiosity.
And then if you need more research, you can always go to KSLNewsRadio.com and learn more.
Listen for Dave and Dejanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Mountain America's MyStyle checking account with built-in benefits. Here's Ricky Meese.
We have a really nice drive on all the Valley freeways with good speeds and no problems. However, we do have a little bit of slowing if you're traveling eastbound on the 21st South Freeway as you're approaching 7200 West. No accidents, just some backups at the intersection. Olson's Greenhouse helps families connect with nature through hands-on gardening, the perfect way to spend time and grow together. Add Olson's flowers to porches, patios, beds, and containers during the Olson's Container Fest, April 26th. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Mostly cloudy and near 80 degrees today and 82 tomorrow. Then Saturday we dip down to the mid-70s and Sunday we'll drop into the 50s. Right now it's partly cloudy and 72 degrees. I'm Heather Peterson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at KSLNewsRadio.com, we're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Utah's top political experts break down the first 100 days of the new administration and discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
On this vote, the yeas are 216, the nays are 214. The motion is adopted without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
That's the moment this bill passed the U.S. House of Representatives. The vote came just a day after Speaker Mike Johnson pushed the vote, saying he didn't have enough support yet. But this morning, that all changed, and they passed it. Welcome to Inside Sources. I'm your host, Rusty Cannon, here with Aaron Reiter. There's been tons of back and forth on this bill, what it does, what it doesn't do, one bill, multiple bills. So we're going to break it down this segment. Thanks for being with us. Aaron, it's great to be here. Yeah. I will confess, I'm a little distracted today. It is the first day of the Masters. And so for those golfers out there, if you are checking your TV, or I'm sorry, window on the corner of your laptop, watching your favorite foursome, I don't blame you. I will do that during the break and see how Rory's doing.
Well, you know what? You and our president are probably distracted by that.
Yeah, he might be as well. That's true. I hope he's not, but he's doing more important things, hopefully. But it is just one of those days. If you're a golfer out there, I think everyone would understand that the weather's always beautiful there. It's in Augusta, Georgia. Mm-hmm. The course looks perfect. And you get away, and it's, here in Utah, it's when it's starting to warm up a little bit. And you want to get out there.
It's a beautiful day here. I mean, I'm distracted by the weather.
Yeah, exactly.
Today.
And for those that, you watch it and then you want to go hit some golf balls. So back on the subject we're talking about.
Let's talk about budget reconciliation.
Budget reconciliation. That is what the House passed today. This bill was not the big, beautiful bill. This bill is what will tee up the ability to make the big, beautiful bill. So after they passed that, Speaker Mike Johnson spoke to reporters after, and here's what he had to say.
It's a good day in the House, and I told you not to doubt us. The media always does, the Democrats always do, but we get the job done, and we're really grateful to have had the big victory on the floor just now. It was a big one, a very important one.
So after that, he talked a little bit more about what this bill does.
We're talking about ensuring that the border is secure, having the resources that are necessary to do that. We're talking about getting the American economy going again by reducing regulation.
So in addition to that, he had just one more last comment we wanted to play.
The big components of the One Big Beautiful Bill is to ensure that we don't have the largest tax increase in U.S. history all at once, which is what would happen at the end of this year if we didn't accomplish this mission.
So, Aaron, as I mentioned, and he mentioned the words big, beautiful bill, I guess everybody's glomming onto that term. This tees up the process now to go and do that bill.
Yeah, so this is part of the reconciliation process. There are multiple steps that Congress has to go through in order to actually get this passed. One of the reasons why this became such a big deal is because the ability to pass the big, beautiful bill, most of Trump's agenda is now wrapped up in what they want to bring forward in this big, beautiful bill. And especially with the way the tariffs have gone over the last few weeks, there's a lot of pressure on the Trump administration right now to do this and to get his agenda through, because as soon as those midterms hit, this could all change. And so, they were unsure if they were going to get this vote to advance the bill. They did. There were some holdouts on the Republican side. They were able to bring enough of them over that they were able to pass it. It was the vote was 216 to 214, so very, very slim on that vote. But because they were able to move this forward in the reconciliation process, they now get to go on and put together this bill. And I don't know. Let's talk about the Senate dynamics. What do you think about this, Rusty?
Well, so what was really holding everything up yesterday was the I'd call it the House Freedom Caucus and most of their members wanting to get stronger assurances from the Senate. So the problem between the Senate bill and the House bill on the budget is that the House bill contemplates spending cuts of about $1.5 trillion, and the Senate one has $4 billion, which is a laughable number compared to one. Let's get that right: $1.5 trillion with a T, and not 400, but $4 billion in reduction, which is laughable. And so the House, to their credit, is saying, "Hold on, that's just not going to fly." So what happened this morning is, after negotiations overnight, you had Senate Leader Thune stand there next to Mike Johnson and basically make a pretty strong commitment of, we want to be serious about reducing spending. There are some senators in the U.S. Senate that think that $1.5 trillion should be a minimum, and that would be music to the ears of the conservatives in the House, and therefore looks like they got enough assurances to go forward. So the only two no votes were Thomas Massie from Kentucky, and I believe it's Spark. I don't know if there's an S on the end of that. Spark from Indiana. There were two R's that didn't vote. Maybe they're just off the floor or had to be out of town or something, but 216 to 214. And so there was actually a quote where I think it was, Chip Roy He said, quote, "We now have 3 strong statements from the Speaker, the President, and the Senate Majority Leader. We did not have those 48 hours ago. We do now." So it sounds like that was the difference maker for them to just go along to get along and let this go through.
Yeah, and one of the big, we talk about, again, why are Republicans voting for this? Because how do you have spending cuts and tax cuts and all of these different things working out together? There's a complicated process for that. But like we said, the tax cuts in particular, which is now what they have to go negotiate, this is something that this is one of the reasons why Republicans wanted Trump to win the White House again, was because a lot of the tax cuts that he put in place in his first term are about to sunset.
Yes.
And they need those to go forward. Otherwise, that's why Speaker Johnson's talking about this could potentially lead to the biggest tax increase. Because if all those tax cuts sunset and we go back to pre-Trump 1.0 levels, that's going to be a big tax increase. So now, right, so this is why you're seeing a lot of Republicans voting for this, even though in many ways it doesn't really cut the deficit like they would otherwise want, because they need to see that agenda. This is part of that agenda and pushing it forward.
I think you can make a credible case that the deficit could be reduced even while cutting taxes. The question is, can they actually reduce spending? I'm not going to hold my breath to watch Washington, D.C. significantly reduce spending. I would love to see it.
Where does that have to come from?
Well, that's the problem, is that it really, to really get at our deficit, all the talk back and forth right now has absolutely nothing to do with fixing our deficit, because it's not entirely, 95% plus of it is driven by Medicaid and Social Security.
Yeah.
Those are off the table until, I bet, after 2030.
Well, that's going to be the next big fight. I mean, people are already talking about this. If you want to be serious about cutting spending, is Medicaid on the table? What does that mean? And there are many Republicans who have already signaled, I will not vote. I will vote no to any measure that cuts that down. So, yeah, this is going to be a big problem. How do you cut spending in a meaningful way if you're unwilling to talk about entitlements? And I'm a millennial. I've been staring this down since I was old enough to understand what the term meant, right? Mm-hmm. But that's conversation is going to come due one day.
Yeah, and you hear Democrats beating that drum a lot about cutting Medicaid. I did hear the Speaker today get out and talk about, hey, that is not the case. He thinks, and I think there's a credible case for them being able to really significantly cut Medicaid spending by going after waste, fraud, and abuse like they talk about. And I know it's a caricature that maybe is unfair, but he talked again about the 29-year-old able-bodied male sitting at home playing video games, being on Medicaid, and that is a cost overrun. That is not the way it's supposed to work. You put back in work requirements, as he mentioned today. You then put the money back towards who really need it, not those that don't need it, that are currently on there. And that's what they hope to fix, and they think that'll do something about it. Stay tuned with us today, because we will have at about 2:20 in our segment there, we're going to chat with Congresswoman Celeste Malloy about this budget vote and a few of the others. We'll get some more details on that. But that'll be interesting, Aaron, to get her take on that, because she was right there. Maybe she has a little bit more of the inside scoop on really what went down. The water under the bridge at this point, because it is past, but it'll be good to hear about that. All right, next on Inside Sources, the House has a busy week, as we've seen, voting not only on this budget, but also on things like voting ID requirements, bank overdraft fees, and restrictions on federal judges. We're going to talk about all of those after the break.
Celebrate National Serger Month with super deals on all sewing machines and sergers at Dave's Bernina in St. George and Provo.
0% interest for 18 months on certain machines. See store for details.
Purchase a new Bernina L890.
Get free gifts worth up to $1,600. Take advantage of $1,000 off the Bernina 475 QE.
Come see the Bernina 990, the most amazing revolutionary sewing machine in the world.
Dave's Bernina has big discounts on the Bernina L450, 460, and the L850 and 860 machines that include lots of free extras.
Amazing bargains on trade-ins, classroom, and demo machines that come with warranties.
Starting at $399. You'll love 20% off Serger feet, Serger studio cabinet, and Serger luggage.
Berninas provide unmatched quality and ease of use. Hurry in to Dave's Bernina, 691 East St. George Boulevard and 2017 North 550 West in Provo. Dave'sBernina.com.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention, which is why when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million-plus products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them, the right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done. This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million-plus products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them, the right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This Friday, join KSL News Radio and NPS from 10 to 1 as the movie show stops by. Then, browse and uncover what makes NPS so great. With 4 locations, NPS takes a new inventory every day. Then, they check all competitors' retail pricing before marking items down 20 to 70% off. You're invited to visit the movie show this Friday from 10 to 1. And that's the first step to discovering NPS. Visit NPSstore.com to begin your own NPS adventure. NPSstore.com.
Hi, Susan. We haven't seen or heard from you.
Cold.
We would like to locate Joyce.
The mysteries that made podcast history
Cherie Warren disappeared.
are now together for free at KSLPodcasts.com.
I'm Dave Cawley, the host of Cold. Join me for Season 1, The Susan Powell Case Files, Season 2, Justice for Joyce, and Season 3, The Search for Cherie. Listen anytime for free at KSLPodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Troy, I don't know if you know this, but we're a big deal.
Are we?
Oh, yeah.
Can you be a big deal and still live with your mom?
Who do you think told me? But honestly, who else but Bitches brings back show pricing on all RVs this far into spring just so everyone gets the best price possible?
That actually is a really big deal. No one does that.
See? We are a big deal.
The sale is a big deal.
The big deal is talking.
Get into Bish's RV for second chance show pricing for a limited time.
We're talking travel trailers starting under $129 per month on approved credit.
Clearance pricing on all remaining new in stock 2024s.
And enjoy 0 payments until July. OAC.
And here's the really big deal. Every RV purchase gets free propane refills for life as long as you own the RV.
Start shoving the best deals now at Bitches.com.
Don't miss your very last chance at the best show pricing deals around. Only for a limited time at Bish's RV of Salt Lake and American Fork, where memories begin.
Based on approved credit, 20% down, 8.99% APR for 180 months. Stock numbers 89912-81734. Subject to prior sale. See dealer for details.
If you're ready to buy a home or sell a home and you're worried about the current real estate market because of what you've heard from some of your friends or family, well, we're here to tell you that you really shouldn't be worried because now is a great time to buy and sell with our friends at the Stern Team, powered by Almada Real Estate.
And here's why. Buyers have more options due to increased inventory, which gives them the power to negotiate for repairs, interest rate buy-downs, and closing cost assistance. While at the same time, sellers are still getting top dollar for their homes, with home values that are higher today than ever before. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, the current real estate market presents a win-win opportunity for both buyers and sellers.
But you still do want to make sure that you're working with a team of real estate experts you can trust that can get you some great results. And that's our friends at the Stern Team, powered by Almada Real Estate.
They have helped thousands of Salt Lake City homeowners, and they're ready to help you. To get started, just go to thesternteam.com. That's thesternteam.com, or Google The Stern Team.
Advanced Window Products. Factory direct. Affordable windows. Call today. They're on their way. Financing available. Save now, pay later. AdvancedWindows.com.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Shortly after passing the budget bill this morning, the House also voted on the SAVE Act. Formerly titled the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, the bill requires proof of citizenship in federal elections. It also sets standards for voter roll purges. 4 Democrats joined all Republicans in supporting the bill. Rusty, I think we have a lot to talk about this one. I have a lot of thoughts on this, and maybe some of our listeners. I am not necessarily all for or all against this. This is very much a nuanced discussion for me. So we're going to talk nuance.
Yes, we're going to talk nuance. So the vote was 220 to 208 on this. This happened today amongst the noise of the budget vote. We'll talk about the other significant votes, one on this segment, one on the next one as well. But in a 220 to 208 vote, that means 4 Democrats voted yes on this.
Mm-hmm. And this is a bill that has been hotly watched for a number of weeks now. People have been looking to this, and it's because there are some implications to the SAVE Act that we're going to get into. But before we do that, let's listen really quickly. Senator Mike Lee was one of the original sponsors of the SAVE Act, and when introducing it, this is what he said.
We can all acknowledge that federal law prohibits non-citizens from voting in federal elections. And the fact that we don't have any mechanism in place currently to bring that about is folly. Look, every time you go just about anywhere, do just about anything, you can see examples of where you have to prove who you are. Something as simple as starting a job. You know you're going to have to show up. You're going to have to process all the I-9 paperwork. And if you're a U.S. citizen, you're going to need to show up with either your birth certificate or a U.S. passport indicating that you once have demonstrated proof of your citizenship and of your U.S. birth. So why shouldn't some of those same standards apply, making exceptions in the absence of available documentary proof where necessary when registering to vote?
Okay. So...
Well, he talked about, I thought the word that was interesting in his statement there, mechanisms. Opponents of this bill consistently repeat the message, hey, it's already illegal for those for people to do this. But that's not the point of the bill. The point of the bill, he mentioned mechanisms. And one of the things the bill does is it requires proof of U.S. citizenship, like a passport or a birth certificate or a real ID driver's license, when you register to vote. That's the key, when you register. The idea is having a mechanism to sort this out of, well, yeah, maybe somebody tries to go and vote and they're not supposed to, but this is trying to get at it from the point of registering to vote.
Yeah.
And as he mentioned, you got to do this type of thing if you apply for a job, if you're flying, if you're trying to get a driver's license, all these things. Why would it be wrong? The flip side of it, and curious your thoughts on this, is, well, but there's some other circumstances where it might be hard to get at these documents or find these documents.
Yeah, and I'll say it actually kind of surprised me that, one of the pushbacks on this is, what if people don't have access to these documents? And I can understand people not having a passport. Passports cost over $100, I think, to get at this point. And if you don't travel internationally, do you need a passport? So there may be a lot of people who don't have a passport. But not having a birth certificate surprised me. I mean, I've had the minute I moved out of my parents' house, I took my birth certificate with me because that seemed like an important document to have, right?
Yes, very.
So, and there are some interesting questions. How do you get a job if you don't have documents to show that? I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for that when we're talking about something like voting, which is very much a constitutionally enshrined principle for American citizens, right? Like that is a core American tenet. And it's not inappropriate to have some parameters around who can register to vote. But by requiring some of this documentation, the flip side of that argument is we also need to make sure that everyone who is supposed to vote, all of these American citizens, can actually do it.
Yeah.
So the access piece, to me, is in many ways as important as the security piece of it. And one of the big pushbacks is that you have groups of people, particularly people like married women, who have changed their name. And now their married name, their legal name, no longer matches their birth certificate. So if you don't have a passport and you just have your birth certificate, maybe you haven't changed your driver's license yet, and you go to register to vote, how are you going to be able to vote, right? So this could disproportionate. And that is a totally valid.
Oh, it's valid.
Totally valid thing.
My own daughter is facing that. So she's married. I think it's a couple years onward now from that, and she's still going through the process.
It takes time.
Yeah, it takes time. In fact, I remember we went back to D.C. on vacation. We went for a White House tour. She got stopped at security because we didn't think about that. What she showed up with, I can't remember if it was her driver's license and I had submitted her name. I can't remember if I submitted either the married or maiden name, but I did it wrong, and it didn't match what her ID was. And so we had to sit. I mean, she eventually got in. We had to sit there though for an extra half hour while they sorted it out because it's common that this happens when you show up to White House security. But to your point, I don't know if she's going to be, and she actually just moved back to Utah. if she goes to register to vote, I think this is going to, well, if this were in place, this might be a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
And so you make a valid point.
And that's where my big concern with it comes from. I wish and I would like to see our leaders in Congress, frankly from both parties, but since we're talking about Republicans, let's talk about Republicans. If we're going to be a pro-family party and a family that encourages marriage, is a family that is supportive of all members of a family, then your legislation has to reflect that, right?
Correct.
It has to reflect that. And you can't do something like these things don't have to be mutually exclusive. Security and access don't have to be mutually exclusive. I'd love for them to also deal with the question of, can we have Election Day as a federal holiday where people get paid for it? For people who, again, if we want people to vote, if we want people to get involved in this, let's give them a pathway to do it so that we're not adding increasingly difficult layers without some sort of compensation to also increase access.
Yeah, I mean, supporters, they argue this is a way to close loopholes and boost confidence in elections.
And that's fine.
I think it's fine. In fact, a lot of the pushback is, come on, very few people try to vote illegally in this way. Why do we need this? I wholeheartedly disagree. There is no problem passing legislation to prevent a problem you worry about coming in the future. Happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with getting at something before it becomes a problem. And if it gives us more confidence in the integrity of elections and it's not difficult to do, then I'm all for it. I think there are valid points, as you bring up and others bring up, as this bill well, let's be truthful, this isn't going to pass the Senate. It's not going to get 60 votes. But aside from that, that's the legislative process. In fact, we see it happen all the time at our state capitol. We go up there and say, hold on, there's an unintended consequence with this bill, Mr. and Mrs. Sponsor, and they fix it. And then they have a substitute, a new version of the bill, and it's fixed. And then it goes forward and has better legislation. There's nothing preventing them from doing that here as well.
Yeah.
The problem in D.C. is the amendment process is so broken and regular order is so broken that's maybe tough to do once the bill is printed and numbered. But it's not impossible. And so they could fix a lot of these problems and get it through passing as a good bill. But as we know, this now goes over to the Senate. There is no way you get 7 Democrats. That's what you need right now to beat the filibuster on this. And once again, I'm going to say this as a pointed partisan comment, aren't Democrats glad now that they didn't blow up the filibuster, about 9 months ago when they're all saying that was a good idea? It's an idiotic idea then, and now.
Well, it's always the right or wrong idea depending on whether or not your party's in the majority.
Because if they did that, this would be law. Mm-hmm. This would pass absolutely with 53 Republican senators in the Senate, and absolutely President Trump would sign this. This would be law if they had blown up the filibuster. So I always have to chuckle every time when it just comes back of, wait a minute, you remember how you advocated for be glad the filibuster's there, because it gets really intense when you're in the minority if you don't need 60 votes. So,
yeah. Now let me ask you, just in the last minute we have here, Rusty, do you think that this is the right issue for Congress to be going after? There's no question that people have concerns about election integrity and security. It's whether or not the data shows that it's necessary, frankly, is kind of irrelevant. The concerns are there, and they're not going away anytime soon. But is this bill the right bill to address the actual security issues, or is this a solution looking for a problem?
Well, I think this is a very valid bill. I think you could question whether this is the best timing for it. I mean, especially now, what we've gone through the last couple of weeks with tariffs and everything and all the pandemonium. This is not on the top of people's minds, and it probably shouldn't be. However, this is a very limited time constraint Congress, where they have a very thin majority for just a little bit longer before we go to the election. They need to move on stuff. So I don't fault them for doing it. Is the bill perfect? I think we've established no, but it could be refined and be made to be a really good bill. Not a big, beautiful bill, but a really good bill. I think so.
We get one big, beautiful voting bill? Oh.
Yes.
All right. Well, like we said, this likely won't pass the Senate. If it does, we'll probably be talking about it again. But in the meantime, when Inside Sources returns, we're going to dig into 2 other bills that just passed in the House and see where those go. Stay with us.
Good afternoon. It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Maria Chaleos. KSL's top local story this hour. Utahns officially make more on average than residents of any other state. That's according to a new Kempsey Gardner report. The report says Utah's median income is 27% above the national average when you adjust for our larger than average household size. Chief Economist Phil Dean says that means that there are more earners per household.
So you look at the average homeowner out there, and they're not experiencing today's high housing prices. For the most part, it's renters and new buyers that are facing the really high prices.
Dean says the data highlights how Utah families are maintaining a strong financial standing despite broader economic pressures across the country. Our top national story from ABC News, the House narrowly passed a Trump-backed budget framework bill today.
This is just the blueprint to kick off the process to build this big sweeping budget that includes all of President Trump's legislative agenda. So there was such drama to even get to this moment, not just on this vote, but remember, the House had to pass a blueprint in February, too, and Johnson had to cancel that vote for a time and then abruptly put it back on as they worked on the holdouts on speakerphone, remember, with President Trump.
ABC's Jay O'Brien reporting there were some Republican holdouts on the bill, but all but two voted yes. Taking a look at your money at this moment, markets trying to take back yesterday's gains. The Dow is down by nearly 1,100 points, nearly 3% at this hour, sitting at 39,520. S&P 500 down by 193 points. The NASDAQ, it is down by 748 points. Weather staying very nice for the next couple of days. We'll tell you how hot it's going to get coming up next. KSL News Time, 1:32.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
For over 22 years, speaking on business on KSL News Radio has been a beloved tradition, celebrating our heroic business leaders and Utah consumers who have helped build one of the strongest state economies in the nation. Now, under the stewardship of the Salt Lake Chamber and hosted by Chamber President and CEO Derek Miller, the program continues to shine a spotlight on those who make Utah's business environment dynamic and thriving. With his expertise and passion, Derek brings the stories of our business community to life. As part of the Salt Lake Chamber, Speaking on Business is proud to continue its legacy of highlighting inspiring stories, trends, and special guests. Support Utah businesses now and be part of Utah's thriving economy. More information can be found at slchamber.com. That's slchamber.com.
This is Christian Staples with Arctic Spas. What is the #1 reason people buy a hot tub and then don't use it? The maintenance. Arctic Spas is relentless in making maintenance easy with our automatic saltwater system. We call it Spa Boy because it's like having someone else take care of your spa for you all the time. It uses salt water, which is the more natural way of treating water, making the water more comfortable. You get no smell, no red eyes, or dry skin, just pure enjoyment. It's automatic because it has a sensor that reads the water and then automatically adjusts the sanitizer and the pH. You don't have to test and adjust the water yourself. You can even monitor everything from your Arctic Spa app on your phone. Now, get all the relaxing advantages of a hot tub without the not-so-relaxing maintenance. So for the most comfortable and convenient spa out there, check out Arctic Spas with stores covering all of Utah in Salt Lake, American Fork, and St. George, or online at arcticspasutah.com. Arctic Spas, the only spa built for Utah's harsh climate.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million+ products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them. The right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done. This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. which is why when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million plus products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them. The right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Traffic and weather together. It's brought to you by Mountain America's MyStyle checking account with built-in benefits. Let's check in now with Ricky Meese.
And we want to thank our texter that gave us the heads up of trouble in traffic for Davis County drivers who texted in on the KSL Mountain Home Services text line about driving on northbound I-15. UHP had been blocking traffic and delays were stacking up very quickly in the Woods Cross area. Right now, traffic is moving again through that spot, but we do have a few vehicles over to the right shoulder. Looks like what may have been a problem is now no longer an issue. Break your routine and into adventure in Cedar City, Bryan Head. Connected to nature, Cedar City makes spring the best break ever. Shopping, dining, and recreation galore. Break up your adventure. Visit cedarcity.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Just a few clouds for the next couple of days. Today's high 79 up to 82 degrees tomorrow. A bit of a change on Saturday with a 10% chance of showers and a high of 74. Right now, 72 degrees. I'm Maria Chaleos from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at KSLNewsRadio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Utah's top political experts break down the first 100 days of the new administration and discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm your co-host, Rusty Cannon, here with Aaron Ryder. Aaron, 2 other pieces of major legislation passed the House yesterday. It was supposed to go alongside the budget vote, which we talked about earlier, that happened today, which was delayed, but these other 2 were not delayed, and they did pass. One limits the power of federal district judges and having to do with nationwide injunctions, and another overturning some bank overdraft fee limits put in place by the Biden administration. So we're going to talk about judges first, and we'll talk about overdraft fees second.
This is going to work really well because I can talk about judges with my experience as an attorney, and you can talk about bank overdraft fees with your experience
in the credit union world. Yes, yes, happy to do that. Fire away, judges.
Judges. All right. So here's this is something that we've been talking about for quite a while, right? These judges are issuing injunctions on President Trump's actions, and nationwide bans on what he's doing are resulting. The issue that Republicans have had with this is that you have a district judge in one part of the country ruling on a case brought before that one judge, and because of that ruling, it's creating a nationwide injunction. And so the idea here is that this would limit the scope of injunctive relief just to the parties before the court. Now, this would create a complexity of litigation because if you are talking about something like firing of federal workers, right, that would mean that federal workers in that one area might get an injunction, but federal workers in another area would have to bring their own legislation to get the same injunction. So it would increase the amount of legislation that you'd have to see across the country because you'd have to bring it before multiple courts.
You said legislation. Did you mean litigation?
Sorry, litigation.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
right, litigation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
yeah, no,
too many L words.
I'm sorry, I'm grasping at straws here, but I get what you're talking about,
yes.
because this is something, I talked about it on the show the other day, that's really bothered me, and I thought it was a conversation that could and should be had about the scope of injunctive relief, right? Should it be nationwide?
This is the question.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that's always existed. I thought the original intent of our court system was that they could have an injunction, but it was limited to those that are involved in the parties involved in that case, right? So where does the authority come to say, you know, I deem this necessary for parties A and B here, but everyone else in the country?
Well, and this has been a little bit unusual because oftentimes what you see is that if a district court issues a ruling on something, you know, in the judicial world, again, you're looking at issues of precedence, right? Stare decisis. You're looking at what has the court decided before. If the court in your area has not ruled on a particular issue, it's not uncommon to look at other courts, other similar courts, and other courts in other areas to see what they've done. So you can get legislation in district courts that actually does end up having a trickle effect around the country simply because that court may set the standard, may set the precedent, and then other courts follow suit. But here you have district court judges who are issuing just a blanket open nationwide ban right from the get-go from the bench, where usually it is more limited. So that's what they're trying to do here. They're trying to limit that. Now, it passed the House, a vote of 219 to 213. Does it pass the Senate? Unlikely.
Unlikely, yeah.
And so this probably doesn't go anywhere. But it is an indicator of how the House is feeling, about how Republicans are feeling about the judicial system right now. I think we all knew that. There's no surprise there.
The Congressional Research Service says it's a little bit hard to get an exact number on the number of nationwide injunctions because of some legal terms and the precise definition, but it identified 86 nationwide injunctions issued during Trump's first term, 28 during Joe Biden's term, and 17 so far since Trump began his second term. So, a higher pace there. Yeah. So it's interesting comments. I read a couple that I found interesting that I wanted to highlight. One where a Democrat House member from Colorado said, quote, "Spare me the feigned indignation," unquote. And then he went on to remind everybody that Republicans were happy when judges were stopping what Biden was doing, having to do with student loans and other things. I think he's totally right. Yeah. On the flip side, Representative Darrell Issa from California, who also sponsored this bill, said it will deter forum shopping. And I totally agree with that because forum shopping is an absolute practice. Nobody should trick you out of thinking that. It is happening all the time. And if you forum shop, get the ruling you want, you can tie it up for a long time. He also pointed out that Representative Mondaire Jones, a Democrat in New York, former congressperson, sponsored a similar bill to this just last Congress. So both sides of the aisle have pushed back on this. But I think it's fair to point out, similar to our conversation on the filibuster, hey, just because you're in the in the minority or majority and you get mad about this, there is some credible thinking as to why this could be the right policy. But I think it's a fair question to ask because I just don't totally agree with the legal definition right now of them being able to do this on a nationwide basis.
Well, again, I find a lot of this so interesting from a constitutional study standpoint because we are encountering some new questions constitutionally and we're pushing on the boundaries of the Constitution as it currently stands. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means we have some questions to settle. And these are judges that are both Democrat and Republican appointees. This is kind of going across both sides. And I don't, some who was it? Representative Bob Onder said, we're experiencing a constitutional crisis, a judicial coup d'etat. I think that's inflammatory language. I don't think that's the case. No. I think these judges are trying to react to things that are happening in real time that we haven't really seen before. And they're, if we're talking about firing of federal workers, well, that affects everybody across the nation, right? I don't think there's ill intent here, but it is presenting new questions that we need to answer.
So the other subject that they voted on yesterday, it was a CRA, it's called. This is a Congressional Review Act, where they can, within 60 legislative days of the new term, overturn a rule from the last term. And this one was one where they were overturning a overdraft fee issue that was put forward by the Biden administration, where they wanted to say, hey, we're going to limit on institutions above $10 billion in size overdraft fees to $5. And that's ridiculous. I'll talk about why. But in full disclosure, those in the financial world, I'm with the Utah Credit Union Association. We are all in favor of overturning this rule. And let me explain why. So let me give this example. Let's say you're on a limited income basis and you're quite strapped and you have a $1,500 rent payment that's going to be taken out of your account tomorrow because it's due. And if it doesn't get paid, you're going to have a pretty big late fee. Do you want your financial institution to clear that check if you don't quite have enough money in there? The answer is yes. You want them to clear it, right? Nobody wants the $1,500 rent payment to bounce because you'll have significant late fees. It can hurt your credit. It can get you in all kinds of trouble. Credit union members, at least for those that I'm speaking, are very much in favor. Hey, let it clear. I'll pay the fee. Because they know that the financial institution is on the hook. So let's say that $1,500 goes through and you walk, you can absolutely walk. They are stuck with that $1,500 loss as a financial institution. Those fees go to paying those losses and other programs. It covers them being able to provide the service. So similar to other policies that are wrong-headed, this actually harms those that you're actually trying to help. Because people want that service. They want their checks to clear. And that fee requires a little bit of discipline on their part to make sure that they can clear their checks. So that was overturned, and so that rule is gone, and you'll now have financial institutions continue to compete against each other in setting those fees, which is the right policy. So So lots of things going on in Congress, very busy time there. Coming up next, Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett has become a new target for ultra-conservatives after she joined 3 liberal justices on the Supreme Court in opposing President Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act. We'll be right back with that discussion.
You trust us for news and information in your car. Now trust us at home. KSL News Radio has you covered, keeping you informed on the latest breaking news, weather, traffic, sports, and more. Listen on your Amazon Echo or Google Home device. Just say, Alexa, open KSL News Radio. Or listen on the KSL News Radio Listen app. Text the word app to 57500. KSL News Radio. We have you covered.
Are you a small business owner who needs immediate cash flow? At Swish Funding, we have flexible funding options from $25,000 to $2 million. For the best rates and terms for your business, just one application to Swish Funding gives you access to our entire network of funders, with cash in your account in as little as 24 hours. To qualify, you must be in business for at least 1 year with monthly revenue of $50,000. Apply at swishradio.com and use code GROW. Swishradio.com, code GROW.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why, when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million-plus products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them, the right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and there's a good chance you've heard me talking about our free furnace sale. The one where you buy a new air conditioner and we give you a new furnace for just the cost to install it, about $400. Well, we still have a few more spots on our schedule we need to fill, so I'm extending the sale, but I'm not quite sure for how much longer. Definitely no later than April 30th, and once I think our schedule's full enough, I gotta pull these ads, so don't wait too long to call and schedule your free estimate. The main reason we do this sale is to give you an incentive to help us keep our guys busy when the weather's mild. And thanks to your help, we're able to keep our guys and keep growing. So if your furnace and air conditioner are ready to be replaced, you owe it to yourself to at least schedule a free estimate and get all the details about our free furnace sale. Just to recap, when you have Any Hour Services install a new air conditioner, we'll give you a new furnace for just the cost to install it. About $400. The furnace is free, you just pay the labor. If you think you might be interested, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Healthcare with human kindness is here. It's at Common Spirit Health. Hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advance healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Together, we have a common purpose, partnering with you in health and healing using powerful medicine, powerful technology, and the greatest power of all, human kindness. You'll know it when you see it, because human kindness is in every care site and in every caregiver. Common Spirit Health. Hello, human kindness.
Everyone needs a checking account, so get the one with built-in benefits to complement your unique lifestyle. Mountain America's My Style Checking has perks no one can pass up. You'll enjoy sizzling restaurant deals, peace of mind mobile phone protection, timely telehealth access, built-in identity protection, and clutch loan rate discounts. Make My Style your lifestyle at Mountain America Credit Union. Visit macu.com/mystyle. Insured by NCUA. Membership required based on eligibility. Some benefits require no cost registration or activation. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply.
I've done multiple different eating plans before. They helped me get weight off, but boom, 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 it all just came back with a vengeance.
Stop wasting time and money on plans that don't work. Trust the #1 weight loss company in America, Soda Weight Loss.
My name's Jim. In 5 months, I dropped over 65 pounds.
Hi, I'm Jared. I'm at 21 weeks. I've lost 110 pounds.
I tried to do it on my own, and I think it's discouraging when you try over and over again and you just get nowhere. You have the experts here. If you're on the fence, I mean, if it hasn't worked out on your own, these are the people to do it.
When you start losing the weight, even that first 5 pounds, this enormous amount of confidence starts to build into you. You start to realize, like, oh, this is possible for me.
No shots, no medications, just real results that last for a lifetime.
How about this? When you join Soda Weight Loss with a partner, you only pay for one. Get started now. Go to sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com.
Soda is, say it with me, state of the art.
This Friday, join KSL News Radio and NPS from 10 to 1 as the movie show stops by. Then, browse and uncover what makes NPS so great. With 4 locations, NPS takes a new inventory every day. Then, they check all competitors' retail pricing before marking items down 20 to 70% off. You're invited to visit the movie show this Friday from 10 to 1. And that's the first step to discovering NPS. Visit npsstore.com to begin your own NPS adventure. npsstore.com.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Ardent supporters of President Trump have set their sights on a Supreme Court justice you might not expect. Or maybe you have if you've been paying attention to the news. Justice Amy Coney Barrett. While she's considered to be one of the more conservative justices and was nominated by President Trump in his first term, many among the more conservative side of the Republican Party throughout the country say that by ruling against President Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act, she is secretly a liberal in disguise.
Do not agree, says Rusty. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
such a
Rusty.
nerd on this stuff because I always, as I mentioned many times before on the show, wished I would have went to law school. I nerd out on some of this stuff and secret admirer here of Greg Skordas, our legal analyst. But yes, this is a debate that often happens around decisions, and we'll get into detail as what she really did here. But yeah, the rhetoric is really extreme in some cases here, and we'll talk about that. But she should not be loyal to the president that nominated her. No
Right.
one should.
Right.
She should be loyal to what she sees as the right judicial philosophy, and there will be times where she, depending on your stance, is going to make you very angry, and any other justice might make you very angry. These people are also forgetting that she voted to overturn Roe v. Wade.
Mhm.
She voted on several issues that were
And she
significant.
was one of the reasons why they could overturn Roe v.
Exactly. And if you look at the ruling, which we'll talk about, she just agreed with parts of the dissent. It does not mean she agrees with all of it. And so a lot of this is kicking and screaming without reading the actual, wording of what she did. If I understand it correctly, she as you look at the actual filing, she agrees with the dissent on parts 2 and 3-B, which is that's in the document. There's just 2 little parts. She is essentially saying, I dissent. I don't think the administration or any administration can shuffle people out of the country in the dark of night, as they phrased it, without due process.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with her. I'm sorry. You cannot just take someone and ship them out of the country without them having at least some sort of due process. And this case actually talked about, and one of the outcomes of it was, where should that legal process take place? They're making them move it to Texas, where it should be. And I think that's right. And so she was along the lines with that, but she was part of the dissent, and she's writing there, agreeing with Justice Sotomayor and Justice Jackson
all
as
three
well.
of the liberal.
Exactly. And so, and Kagan, thank you for pointing that out. And so people are sort of losing their mind on that.
Yeah, this is where, we don't talk a lot about the kind of the populism of the MAGA movement, but that's really what it is. It's a populist movement. And Donald Trump is very much a populist leader. And I think you see that play out in instances like this. Donald Trump's policies are not always true conservative policies, really. I mean,
they are not.
Tariffs and
and a lot of other things. He is not your average conservative, and maybe we'll get in that in another segment. But let's not kid ourselves.
And so there is natural friction where you have someone like Amy Coney Barrett, who really is a kind of dyed-in-the-wool, tried-and-true conservative in her ideology, and so sometimes when President Trump makes a move on something that she feels goes contrary to that, her job is to rule on the law as she sees it. And like you said, Rusty, in this case, her issue was, look, you've got to prove that these people are who you claim they are before you ship them off to El Salvador. And that's just due process. That's the Constitution. And everybody has that right. And I don't care who you are. That's the law, right? So I actually really appreciate, I've heard Amy Coney Barrett speak. She came to Utah a few years ago before she was nominated to the Supreme Court. And she is truly fantastic. I have a ton of respect for her. I actually quite like her. But I think sometimes you see character when you have justices who, and she's not legislating from the bench, right? She's not going out and saying, I'm going to make my own law on this. She's just saying, no, I'm sorry, this was inappropriate.
Yeah, according to the statute as she reads
Yeah.
it. And I think that's very fair. There was an interesting quote from, this gentleman's name is Doug Hay. He's a former communications director for the RNC, the Republican National Committee. He said, quote, for the folks of the MAGA world, they don't really care about the label of conservative. They care about your loyalty to the president, I should say, unquote. And
Yes, I think that's true.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I just don't agree with those who just, demand absolute loyalty to everything that President Trump is doing. I mean, I voted for him three times, I guess, right? 3 times. And so I want him to succeed. But there are times when a judge can make a rational legal decision if a president gets, off course. And she was just dissenting as far as that point. So when she was nominated, actually 538, it's a data site, looked back at her record.
Mm-hmm.
They actually were quoted as saying they saw her as maybe the most conservative justice on the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals where she was. I think she has plenty of bona fides as far as conservative for anybody that really wants to get into it. It's just here I think she did what she thinks is best. I mean, there was a ruling recently that I disagreed with her on, just on a policy point, where it was the one about the foreign aid, where the Supreme Court said that $2 billion still needs to be paid out. I agreed with the dissent by Justice Alito, where he was, quote, stunned by the decision, and I totally agree with him, and I didn't understand why Justice Barrett was siding with the others and saying, yeah, you've got to go out and pay this. I just think that's the wrong interpretation. But I don't run out and just say, she's disloyal to the president. It's just that's their judicial thinking, and they're going to make the decision they think is best.
Mm-hmm. I think this also really comes down to, politics is hard and it's easy. We get so much from sound bites now, right? Everything is a sound bite. It's a 30-second clip. It's a headline. It's something you can read as you scroll past it on your phone. But I was at an event in Washington, D.C. a few years ago where they had Bob Woodward come, and he was speaking about journalistic integrity and about the 24-hour news cycle. And he said, we're just losing our ability to think critically about issues that we see. And I think that's true, because we're demanding this influx of information over and over and over again. And I would like to see us, and hopefully, I mean, if someone's listening to this show, they're probably someone who's trying to, at least thinking critically about something, because you don't listen to this show otherwise. But the hope is that we can appreciate most of the things that we encounter in this world and in this political world are gray issues. They're things that have a lot of nuance in them. And especially when it comes to the Supreme Court and the way that the court rules, it's often much more nuanced than how the media puts it out there, how we talk about it in public. And cutting through that noise and looking at the true nuance, looking at the true things that are going on, it's a lost skill. It's a skill that we're losing as a society. And this is a perfect example of that, I think, where you take someone who is a Trump appointee, truly conservative, deeply cares about her faith, her community, this country, all of the things that you want in a Supreme Court justice in so many ways, and yet people are just going after her.
I think it's worth reminding people, too, that judges often make rulings that they don't agree with. And what I mean by that, we talked about it the other day on the show. I read a book that I absolutely loved, or actually listened to it, was Justice Gorsuch's book. It's a new one called A Republic If You Can Keep It, where he talked about the sign of a good judge is that they will often make rulings that they disagree with. And if you think that's the way it should be. If the law says X is supposed to happen, well, then you rule that X happens, even though
their
you
job
think
is to
Y
rule
should
on the
happen.
law.
You shouldn't say, well, I think Y should happen, so I'm going to legislate from the bench. Because if they did that, we might as well ditch the legislature, because we now just have a legislature in the courts, and you can't have that. And so, maybe I'm not saying this happened here, but there might be instances where they side with the dissent, like in this case, and have a reason for it, but they think, wow, man, I don't agree with it, but I think that's what the law says. And that could have been the case here, because she was just talking about taking people and putting them on a plane overnight without due process. That's what she was talking about.
And, I've heard many members of the Supreme Court speak before at different events, and from both sides, Republicans and Democrats. They care deeply about what they're doing. And I think, they deserve a little bit of credit for that, I guess, is what I'm saying. All right, coming up in the second hour of Inside Sources, tariffs on, tariffs off. We're going to discuss the effect of President Trump pausing most of the tariffs again, plus the final days for labor unions looking to repeal Utah's House Bill 267. That and more coming up next.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Maria Chaleos. KSL's top story. It is breaking news. We are hearing that a helicopter has crashed into the Hudson River this afternoon. Police say it's happened around 2 Mountain Time near Jersey City. New York City Fire Department is currently responding to that crash. House Republicans have passed legislation that requires proof of U.S. citizenship when registering to vote. This has long been a priority for the GOP and the Trump administration. They argue that the SAVE Act is necessary to ensure only citizens vote in U.S. elections. But Democrats warn it risks disenfranchising millions who don't have access to the proper documents. At least 184 people are now confirmed dead after a roof collapsed at a nightclub in the Dominican Republic this week. ABC's Victor Oquendo is in Santo Domingo and says a band was performing when the roof collapsed.
Members of that band killed. Also among the deceased, 2 former Major League Baseball players, Octavio Dotel and Tony Blanco. Blanco, according to reports, saved one of his former teammates by pushing him out of the way of falling debris.
Crews are still in the recovery mode. No cause has yet been determined. Taking a look at your money at this moment, the Dow is down by nearly 1,100 points, about more than 2.5%, sitting at 39,520. That's going into the close. S&P 500 down by 193 points. The NASDAQ closing down by more than 4%. A couple more days of nice temperatures. We'll get a look at the forecast coming up next. KSL News Time, 2:01.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. For years now, I've been telling you about Connecticut soft water systems that use 2/3 less salt than the others. But I've never told you exactly how they do that. Well, there are several ways, so consider this as part 1 in a series. Most of the softeners out there use a finicky, hard-to-adjust computer to guesstimate when to cycle, and it errs on the side of cycling too often, which means it'll burn through way too much salt way too soon. Connecticut is different. It has an all-mechanical system that measures the water precisely. No computer, no guesstimating, so it cycles only when needed. The result? Connecticut delivers perfectly soft water 24/7 using minimal salt. So why not save your lower back from carrying the 3 bags of salt when all you need is 1? Call Northern Utah's authorized Connecticut dealer, Connecticut Quality Water Systems of Salt Lake. Call them now, 801-576-8600, or log on to softwaterutah.com and tell them Doug sent you.
This is an important notice to all U.S. taxpayers. The IRS is giving away billions of dollars in tax savings through a federal program called the Fresh Start Initiative to aid delinquent taxpayers. This initiative was established for anyone facing financial hardship and unable to pay their back taxes. Qualifying and enrolling in this program will stop all collections, settle your delinquent tax problem, and even reduce what you owe by thousands of dollars. Call the hotline at People's Tax Relief to see if you qualify and get this free information by dialing 800-810-3588. If you have unfiled tax returns or cannot afford to pay your personal or business back taxes, you can now get the help you need. One simple phone call can resolve your tax problem and save you thousands of dollars. To see if you qualify and to get this important free information, call 800-810-3588. 800-810-3588. 800-810-3588.
Celebrate National Serger Month with super deals on all sewing machines and sergers at Dave's Bernina in St. George and Provo.
0% interest for 18 months on certain machines. See store for details.
Purchase a new Bernina L890.
Get free gifts worth up to $1,600. Take advantage of $1,000 off the Bernina 475 QE.
Come see the Bernina 990, the most amazing revolutionary sewing machine in the world.
Dave's Bernina has big discounts on the Bernina L450, 460, and the L850 and 860 machines that include lots of free extras.
Amazing bargains on trade-ins, classroom, and demo machines that come with warranties.
Starting at $399. You'll love 20% off Serger feet, Serger studio cabinet, and Serger luggage.
Berninas provide unmatched quality and ease of use. Hurry in to Dave's Bernina, 691 East St. George Boulevard and 2017 North 550 West in Provo. Dave'sBernina.com.
Traffic and weather together is brought to you by Mountain America's My Style checking account with built-in benefits. Any trouble spots, Ricky?
Not on the Valley freeways. Nice and quiet there. We are expecting to see delays once again this afternoon. Westbound I-80 near 5600 West. Of course, that's due to lane restrictions with the bridge work going on there. And we do have the cleanup of an accident at 1300 South End 4th East. Put your energy into the fight song. Not fighting for parking. You win when you take UTA to the game. Plan your trip at rideuta.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
A high today of 79 degrees. Tomorrow up to 82, but a bit of a dip on Saturday. The high down to 74 and a 10% chance of showers. Sunday, much cooler at 56 degrees. Right now it's sunny and 75 degrees downtown. I'm Maria Chaleos from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Utah's top political experts break down the first 100 days of the new administration and discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to the second hour of Inside Sources. I'm your co-host, Rusty Cannon, here with Aaron Ryder, and round and round and round we go. Aaron, it may feel a little disorienting by this point, on tariffs. Markets rebounded a ton yesterday after the president announced a 90-day pause. However, that is looking like a bit of a dead cat bounce. The Dow finishing down over 1,000 points as we look at it now after the markets closed recently, while the president clarified on tariffs on China are now at 145%. So let's talk about the pause a little bit, and then we'll get into some of the details. First, let's listen to a soundbite of the president's reasoning from him he gave for the pause yesterday.
I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know, they were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid.
So he's using a golf term there, the yips, when you putt and you short a putt. But this is important stuff. He also, let's listen to ABC talking about, no, actually, this is the president talking more about the tariffs here.
There'll be a transition cost and transition problems, but in the end, it's going to be a beautiful thing.
Part of the news as well in recent days is progress being made on negotiations, and this is what he also had to say about that.
I think it's very close, but you know, we have to have a deal that we like. We don't want a deal that's going to be a bad deal, or I could make every deal in one day if I wanted to. I could do this in one day. I could just say, here's what we'll do.
So ABC's Karen Travers had a little bit more on those negotiations, a result of what's going on.
This is complex work. This is a lot of work for the administration now to do. Trade deals tend to take years when you're doing it one-on-one with the country. Now the administration says that they're juggling this with about 75 different countries. The White House this morning says, though, that they have about 15 explicit offers on the table that they're studying right now, and that 2 of them could have been closed very recently, but they're still looking over the details right now.
So, Aaron, what's your take on this as of today? Because it changes by the minute, as we know, but at least at 2:08 p.m. today, what is your take?
People are getting yippy, Rusty.
Yes, they're getting the yips on the putting green.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I'll say I'm not surprised by this, right? Mm-hmm. I think this is what Trump does. He throws a massive stick out there, massive penalties. Everybody kind of freaks out, comes to the table, and then he pulls the penalties right back. The question for me is, does it ultimately go anywhere? Because that's in the past.
Does it produce results?
Yeah, like sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't produce any results, then I feel like this has all been for nothing. And frankly, we'll be kind of ticked that he played pinball with the country's like mental health for weeks on an issue that doesn't go anywhere. So, but if it, but again, I don't necessarily have a problem rebalancing some of our trade agreements. It does take time. Karen Travers referenced that. These are complex deals, and these are deals that have been in place for years. And now all of a sudden we're trying to renegotiate all of them at the same time. I don't know.
I think he has gone. I think he could have gone about this in a better way. I once heard it said, and I think that's very good advice: act boldly, implement slowly. Mm-hmm. He acted boldly and implemented immediately, right?
Yes.
And where I thought a better track would have been, hey, we're going to slap, what is now 145% on China? Mm-hmm. Better way to say, hey, we're going to put 10% on, an additional 10 on now. If you don't come to the table by pick a date, it's going to 60. And if you don't come by another 30 days after that, it's going to 100. And then, it's something like that where it steps up. And then people can have some time to digest, and you're still getting to the point. But instead, he seems to just kind of swing the driver on the first shot, so to speak, and just go for it. You can see I'm still in that golf mind. I'm thinking about the Masters.
I know. Another way to phrase it is the ready, fire, aim approach.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's where the market got so crazy. So here's what was interesting in recent days is typically when you have stock market pandemonium, that is good for interest rates, meaning it drives prices higher in the bond market as they flee the stock market, which in the inverse relationship drives yields down, which can actually drive mortgage rates down. That was happening. And there were some conspiracy theories about maybe that's what he's really trying to do. There's no way he's going to do this big of a mess to try to do something like that. However, it's just stupid. It can go so wrong.
Well, and it did go wrong.
It did go wrong. And then what happened about a week ago, I think it was about a week ago, something changed and the Treasury market started falling apart. And one thing everyone in the financial world knows is you pay attention to the bond markets. If those are getting skittish, especially in the Treasury market, you better pay attention. Now, whether that's actually what he paid attention to, there is some reporting that Bessent talked to him over the weekend and then he looked at the bond market. He'll spin it in some other way now, and I don't fault him for it, but I would hope that he made a better decision and looked at it and said, wait a minute, maybe we need to take a pause. And I would give him credit for taking the advice of others and coming to a good conclusion of, hey, maybe we need to pause this.
Well, hopefully that's what you do, and that's what your cabinet is there for, because it was becoming clear that some members of his cabinet were not necessarily on the same page. Bessent himself, right? Like there were things he was saying where it was kind of like, and you could just tell that Trump was acting, and even members of his own team weren't aware that he had acted, and then they're having to adjust in real time, right? Like it just kind of felt like nobody was really on the same page with this, and Trump was, again, just ready, fire, aim.
Yeah, and that was the part of the problem that bugged me as well over the weekend and previous. You had, I just forgot his name, one of his advisors, I think it's Navarro, if I have the name right, talking about there will be no deals. These tariffs are going in place and we love them and we'll collect all that money. I think that's completely wrong and a dumb idea. It doesn't work. But then others saying, no, we're seeking to get deals. I think this could be seen as history unfolds as a good way to go about it if you're seeking to get a deal done, meaning go to zero tariff world. Amen. Because a lot of us have had some enlightening moments here going through this process of, wait a minute, I didn't know that Canada, as an example, had like a 300% tariff on our dairy products. That's ridiculous. They should go to zero. And if others are, and if this is a way to get them to say, okay, we're going to zero or getting towards zero, and we go to a zero tariff world on all products or most products, I think that's a good end, to get to, and these means maybe are justified. The problem is we didn't know if that's what he was doing. And now he is now claiming, as we heard today, and even further while we've been on the air today, saying, yes, we're looking to get deals done. We have so many people lined up and do that. And if we then get to a zero tariff world eventually, I think this could turn out to be a positive for him. But it's hard to see that right now.
But boy, that is so complicated. I mean, zero tariffs, there's a lot of work you have to do before you can get to an environment like that. And Trump has also been pretty open about the fact that he expects these tariffs to bring in millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to the United States. And I think he also has been looking at that as one way to offset tax cuts or, spending cuts, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do with your spending cuts now if your tariffs are not there anymore? And what is the long-term effect on the economy if the tariffs are in place? I mean, this is a domino effect that circles itself almost.
Yeah, and a lot of what's been missing, in fact, there were some credible articles about them getting the math wrong on the way they did that board that he had up.
Yeah, it was the trade deficit.
The trade deficit, because they were actually some quite smart people looked at it, figured out the formula, and made some good points of, we think that you've got this wrong, and therefore these tariffs should be way, way lower than what you're claiming they need to be reciprocal. Maybe that was part of their thinking and backing away a little bit, but yeah, I think this could be a good thing if it really unfolds to where we're getting deals done and a good result. We all want to go to a zero tariff. I think most people want to go to a zero tariff world, with the exception of maybe some weird cases. But the market reacting today, as we see, further clarifications, the stuff on autos and things are going to remain. And then this China thing is a big deal. That is a big deal.
It is. And it's now affecting the purchase of TikTok because, hey, China and the United States are now fighting. And so the TikTok deal is in total limbo.
Yeah.
Right?
Tanking that deal for sure.
Yes. And this is one where, Trump has a longer leash than he did in his first term. People are giving him more latitude than his first term because they want to see action. But at some point, the check's going to come due, right? At some point, you have to see results or the entire thing falls apart.
All right, next on Inside Sources, we're going to continue our earlier discussion on the House's recent votes on the budget today and speak with Utah's own Representative Celeste Malloy. We'll be right back.
With Progressive's collision coverage, my family gets up to $1,000 for vet bills if I'm injured in a car accident. And that makes this Chihuahua really feel like part of the family. What's that? I don't sound like a Chihuahua? Oh, I'm sorry. What exactly am I supposed to sound like? I guess all Chihuahuas are high-strung, riding around in expensive designer purses. Actually, I prefer riding in cars. So I appreciate that my family protects me with Progressive's pet collision coverage. Okay, maybe I am a little high-strung. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Not available in all states. Coverage for dogs and cats is included with the purchase of collision coverage and is subject to policy terms.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million-plus products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them. The right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
For over 22 years, speaking on business on KSL News Radio has been a beloved tradition, celebrating our heroic business leaders and Utah consumers who have helped build one of the strongest state economies in the nation. Now, under the stewardship of the Salt Lake Chamber and hosted by Chamber President and CEO Derek Miller, the program continues to shine a spotlight on those who make Utah's business environment dynamic and thriving. With his expertise and passion, Derek brings the stories of our business community to life. As part of the Salt Lake Chamber, Speaking on Business is proud to continue its legacy of highlighting inspiring stories, trends, and special guests. Support Utah businesses now and be part of Utah's thriving economy. More information can be found at slchamber.com. That's slchamber.com.
Hey, it's Brian with Olson's Greenhouse. In today's busy world, your home should be your sanctuary, a peaceful retreat where you can unwind, breathe deeply, and recharge. And what better way to create that haven than with flowers? A pop of color in your flower beds, a cheerful container garden by the front door, or a lush patio filled with vibrant blooms can transform any space into a personal oasis. Flowers don't just brighten up your home, they lift your spirits too. Research even shows that surrounding yourself with plants can reduce stress and boost happiness. At Olson's Greenhouse, we grow premium quality plants that make it easy to bring beauty and joy into your life. Whether you prefer bold, eye-catching colors or soft, soothing pastels, we have the perfect flowers to complement your space. And with locally grown plants, you know they're ready to thrive. This spring, create a sanctuary of color and comfort with flowers from Olson's Greenhouse. Find us on Instagram at Olson's Greenhouse Gardens or go to ogg.com to find a retailer near you. That's ogg.com for Olson's Greenhouse Gardens.
This is Derek Overstreet of the New Millennium Group and host of Stop Working and Start Living Radio. If you're close to or in retirement and you don't have a tax plan, call us right now, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. Listen, our country's been spending like never before, and the tax bill is coming soon. If you need an income tax strategy and a financial plan that will get you through the rest of your life, give my team a call, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. If you want an investment plan that allows you to keep more of your gains and pay less taxes, give us a call, 888-999-6370. My team specializes in the type of plan that will get you retired 3 to 5 years sooner than you thought possible. So, get a no-cost tax analysis by calling 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. My team is standing by now.
As a business owner looking to take your business to the next level, it's all about the right marketing. But what exactly is right for you? At KSL News Radio, we are ready to help you craft a perfect comprehensive strategy. Whether it's our powerful talent endorsements, engaging live interviews, creative production, live events, or our extensive digital platforms, we've got you covered with the right solution. Contact Stephanie Palmer today, spalmer@ksl.com, and let's grow your business together. Email spalmer@ksl.com.
Any Hour Services free furnace sale is going on right now. If you haven't scheduled your free estimate yet, do it now. Call Any Hour Services today or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
Question: what will you find on all over-the-counter or OTC medicine packages to help you choose the right drug and use it safely? The answer: the Drug Facts label. This label lists the medicine's active ingredients and purpose, how much to take, and warnings you should know before using it. Remember, even OTC medicines you buy without a prescription can cause side effects you don't want. So follow the information listed on the Drug Facts label. For more information, visit fda.gov/Drug Facts label. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Like we mentioned in the first hour of today's Inside Sources, the U.S. House of Representatives has been busy this week, voting on things like the budget, voting ID requirements, and more. To help break it all down for us and to talk about how these decisions will affect Utahns, we're joined by Utah's 2nd Congressional District Representative Celeste Malloy. Representative Malloy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, how are you guys?
Doing
great. We're doing good. So I'm going to confess, I have watched too many episodes of Veep, you know, the comedy show about what goes on in Washington. And we know, Representative Malloy, that there was a big vote today. And I just want to ask, in all these back and forth negotiations, I assume it's not like a TV show and it's that colorful of conversations in these back rooms and all, but any funny stories to tell, or is it just less chaotic than we all think it is because we watch too many TV shows?
No, if you're going to watch a TV show to try to get an idea of what it's like here, Veep is the right one.
Okay.
I hesitate to recommend it to people because they do use some pretty objectionable language.
Yes, they do.
But that also happens here a lot. So, yeah, it was probably a little bit like Veep. I wasn't in the backroom negotiations. I was on the floor voting like most of the conference. And then there were about 20 people apparently in a backroom negotiation while the rest of us were just sitting on the floor waiting for them to close the vote.
So I'm curious about that. Tell us a little bit about the dynamics in Washington, because we've seen a few times now where President Trump is trying to move his agenda forward. He's trying to encourage bills to pass, and yet you have some holdouts in the Republican Party who are saying, no, I do not want to vote for this bill. So what has that process been like? Particularly, you know, we're looking at the budgeting process here. There's a lot on the line with President Trump's agenda if Republicans are not working together as a bloc.
Well, I mean, the process is about like what you would expect. As Republicans, we just don't fall in line very well. I don't think we're ever going to. I get asked this all the time. Why do the Democrats work together and Republicans don't? And I think it's the difference between what makes us Republicans and them Democrats. They respect authority and hierarchy better than we do. And I think the debate we have on our side is really healthy and really good. I wish we did more of it internally instead of externally. And they've actually done a decent job of that this time. I mean, most people can't name the 20 people who were in the room for the negotiations. That's probably a sign that we're doing this the right way finally.
So I'm curious, I wanted to make some clarifications that I think are correct, and correct me if I'm wrong. This bill is the budget bill. It is not the big, beautiful bill. It is the bill that sets up the process to make the big, beautiful bill, correct?
You are correct.
Okay.
And we've already done this once, so I know that's confusing to people. So the budget resolution is what we voted on. And a budget resolution starts the reconciliation process. The reconciliation bill is the one big, beautiful bill.
Got
Okay.
it. So how
The reason this budget resolution, sorry, I'll just finish. The reason this budget resolution is so important is because it sets the rules for the big, beautiful bill. In fact, this is the reason we know it's going to be one bill, because of the budget resolution. So the House passed one in February. Then the Senate passed theirs last week, and it wasn't identical to the House resolution. So we had to vote again to adopt the Senate's bill, which included all of ours and some amendments. So all of our instructions to the committees that we passed in February are still in this bill. But now the House and the Senate have the same instructions, and we can now get to work on crafting the big, beautiful bill.
Yeah, so that was my next question. What happens at this point? How does the one big, beautiful bill get passed at this point? And how long does that process? I mean, I know that's a tough question to answer, but about how long does that process typically take?
So we're shooting for voting on that bill in May, so next month. And what happens now is that those 11 committees that got instructions in the budget resolution go do their job and write their part of the reconciliation bill according to the instructions they just got. So 11 committees will do their work. Then they bring those pieces and stitch them all together into a reconciliation package. And then that's the big, beautiful bill we vote on.
Okay, so my next question is, there's a wide canyon between the number that I've read for the House and the number I read for the Senate. My understanding is the House number on reducing spending is $1.5 trillion with a T, and the Senate is not 400, but $4 billion with a B. Like, that's a massive difference. Does the House trust the Senate to come up to that number? Well, I guess they do. It sounds like hardliners were given enough assurances that that will take place. Do you agree?
So let me back up to the first thing you said. There's a huge gulf between the number the House passed and the number the Senate passed. Those numbers are floors, not ceilings. So the House, in order to get votes on the resolution, we did a lot of the work ahead of time to make sure that people knew where we were headed and what would come out of this process, because we have such a narrow margin. The Senate, as a body, kind of decided they trust themselves to make big cuts. And so they put really low floors in. They didn't do as much of the negotiation up front. So what you're seeing is the difference between the House already spent almost a year on this process and the Senate has only spent a few weeks on this process. But if it says $4 billion and you save $1.5 trillion, you're fine. If it says $4 billion and you save even $1 less than that, then it fails. So they just gave themselves all the leeway in the world, and we did not. And no, the House doesn't generally trust the Senate. That's well documented throughout the history of this country. But what you saw this morning was Speaker Johnson and Leader Thune do a press conference together and say that they're both committed to getting to that higher number. And that's why it passed today.
Got it. Well, this is going to be an interesting process to follow, but we have, just a couple minutes left. I wanted to ask you quickly about some of the other votes that the House took this morning, starting with the SAVE Act. I'd be curious to know your thoughts on that. I believe all of our delegation from Utah voted in favor of it on the House side. Would just love to hear your thoughts on that bill.
Yeah, that's not the first time we've passed the SAVE Act out of the House. The states run elections, and I've been a big proponent of staying out of it and letting states run elections. The problem is the federal government got involved and told states they can't verify citizenship status, and so we're fixing that. Now we're telling states, yes, go verify citizenship status, because only citizens should be voting. And so a lot of the messaging on the SAVE Act is kind of over the top about how this is going to work. But really, it's just the federal government fixing what the federal government broke. We told states they couldn't verify. Now we're telling them to verify.
That might be news to a lot of people, because
I think it is.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, and we're always glad we have you on. This is good, because I think that is something that I think most people don't understand, that the SAVE Act is undoing something that the federal government has already done, and that's a very good point. But I believe the SAVE Act would now have to go back to the Senate. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and could it get 60 votes?
So we've passed it out of the House before. It hasn't gotten out of the Senate yet. So let's see what this Senate does with it. The balance of power has changed in the Senate.
Yes. Yes, but they would still need 60 in the Senate to get something like this through unless it's attached to a must-pass, correct?
Well, even on a must-pass, they would need 60. Usually you attach something to a must-pass because that's the way to get to 60.
Got it. Okay. That makes good sense. Then I just wanted also, we just have about 30 seconds left. House now goes on break, but I assume work is intense now on getting this tax bill done. Do you think it can be done by the deadline you're hoping for in May?
I hope so. I would not bet on any timelines right now in the United States House of Representatives, but that's the plan. So we've got 2 weeks of recess where we don't have committee hearings, we don't have other things, but those committees who got instructions can really focus on getting the reconciliation bill written, and the House and Senate are working closely together through the whole process, which does speed things up.
Well, we're going to see how this goes. Representative Celeste Malloy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, after the break, we're going to talk about some local political issues, including the referendum to repeal Utah's recently passed so-called anti-labor union bill. Coming up next.
When it comes to vaping, the truth can get clouded. So let's make it clear. Vaping is not safe for youth.
Because vaping can put microscopic particles into your lungs.
And dangerous things like metals into your body.
And nicotine, which can harm a person's brain development through their mid-20s.
With appealing flavors, high nicotine levels, and lots of promotion on social media.
Many kids think vaping is harmless, but it's not.
So talk to your kids about the risks of vaping.
Because when you talk, they hear you.
Learn more at underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. KSL's top story this hour. It's breaking news. We're learning more about a fatal helicopter crash into the Hudson River this afternoon. Let's get the latest from ABC News.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Chuck Sievertson. Deadly helicopter crash into the Hudson River off Jersey City, New Jersey, across from New York City.
Dispatch to all companies responding in. Be advised, we got confirmation. Helicopter down in the water. So far,
that's Jersey City Fire Dispatch Radio. 5 aboard total. At least 3 are dead, sources tell ABC News. It happened in the past hour. ABC's Aaron Katursky.
Law enforcement sources tell us there are believed to be fatalities. Right now, I see a number of emergency vehicles, fire and police boats trying to assist in the rescue effort.
Police and fire officials say several people have been rescued from the very cold river water. The helicopter was upside down when rescuers arrived. Jersey City, Port Authority, and New Jersey State Police are handling the emergency, a helicopter crash into the Hudson River. This is ABC News.
Your money at this moment. The market gave back almost half of yesterday's gains. The Dow down 1,087 points. Coming up, even warmer weather ahead. The KSL forecast is on the way. Stay with us. KSL News Time, 2:32.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
Get a head start on the warmer months ahead with a $29 AC tune-up from Yes Air Conditioning, Heating, Plumbing, and Electric. Yes offers licensed technicians and an exceptional service guarantee to give you peace of mind and help prevent expensive breakdowns. Ensure your system is working at peak efficiency and help save money on energy costs with a $29 AC tune-up from Yes Air Conditioning, Heating, Plumbing, and Electric. Call now or visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions. Just say yes.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance specialist for university housing, he knows college students can major in wear and tear. Plus, housing so many students doesn't leave a lot of room to house all the supplies he needs. That's where Grainger comes in. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast, dependable delivery, Grainger carries the quality products he needs so he doesn't have to. From a new door hinge to a whole new faucet. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Is your AC ready for summer? Don't wait for the heat to hit. Weak airflow? Warm air? Strange noises? These are warning signs your AC needs attention. Our skilled technicians offer AC repair services or replacements to keep your family cool all summer long. Don't sweat it. 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning has your back. Here to keep your home cool all summer. Visit onehour.com to schedule today. Financing options available.
Troy, I don't know if you know this, but we're a big deal.
Are we?
Oh, yeah.
Can you be a big deal and still live with your mom?
Who do you think told me? But honestly, who else but Bitches brings back show pricing on all RVs this far into spring just so everyone gets the best price possible?
That actually is a really big deal. No one does that.
See? We are a big deal.
The sale is a big deal.
The big deal is talking.
Get into Bish's RV for second chance show pricing for a limited time.
We're talking travel trailers starting under $129 per month on approved credit.
Clearance pricing on all remaining new in stock 2024s.
And enjoy 0 payments until July. OAC.
And here's the really big deal. Every RV purchase gets free propane refills for life as long as you own the RV.
Start shopping the best deals now at bitches.com.
Don't miss your very last chance at the best show pricing deals around. Only for a limited time at Bish's RV of Salt Lake and American Fork, where memories begin.
Based on approved credit, 20% down, 8.99% APR for 180 months. Stock numbers 89912-81734. Subject to prior sale. See dealer details.
Hi, Susan. We haven't seen or heard from you.
Cold.
We would like to locate Joyce.
The mysteries that made podcast history
Cherie Warren disappeared
are now together for free at KSLPodcasts.com.
I'm Dave Cawley, the host of Cold. Join me for Season 1, The Susan Powell Case Files, Season 2, Justice for Joyce, and Season 3, The Search for Cherie. Listen anytime for free at KSLPodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Mountain America's My Style checking account with built-in benefits. Here's Ricky Meese.
In Davis County, we do have an accident. Southbound Legacy Parkway in Centerville blocking a left lane of travel. And then early onset delays with the road work and lane restrictions. Westbound I-80 approaching and passing 5600 West. And of course, you can always text us your traffic tips at 57500. That's the KSL Mountain Home Services text line. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
The KSL weather forecast, 47 degrees overnight. Then tomorrow we're going to hit 82 before a breeze blows cooler air in for the weekend. Right now, 75 degrees. I'm Jeff Kaplan from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Utah's top political experts break down the first 100 days of the new administration and discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm Rusty Cannon here with Aaron Ryder. And today, labor unions are working around the clock to gather enough signatures to repeal House Bill 267, Public Sector Labor Union Amendments. Now, the bill, as you might recall, bans public labor unions from collective bargaining with public employers. This does not have anything to do with regular unions, if I can call them that, but public unions dealing with those like a school district or a fire or police.
County government.
Those types of things. And Utah has pretty strict rules to repeal the measure on the ballot, and we're going to go through the details. So the question now, Aaron, is will they get that done with 5 days left?
Yeah, this is the question. So, we have different ways of making of getting legislation passed or repealed in the state of Utah, right? We have our legislative session, but then you also have ballot initiatives. We've talked a lot about that in the past, but then you also have the referendum process. With the referendum process, if a bill gets passed in the legislative session and people decide they don't like this bill, a referendum is a path to basically veto the bill from the public standpoint, right? So the public can issue their own veto on this.
Or have a shot at vetoing.
Yeah. Now, but it's a complicated process, and so that's kind of what we want to talk through here. First of all, you have to gather signatures to even get this thing on the ballot. And that signature process starts after the legislative session ends. You have to get, you have to get 8% of registered voters statewide. So if you've been out driving around, if you've seen people on the side of the road holding up signs, hey, come sign our petition, if you've gone to any sort of semi-political event or, things like that, people have hosted parties for this to invite people to come and sign this petition. That's what they're doing. They're trying to get 8% of registered voters statewide. That totals about 140,000, a little bit more than that, people. But it's not just 140 plus thousand people in Salt Lake County. You've got to get that number from all across the state. You have to get 8% in 15 of the state's 29 Senate districts.
Yes, and that's an important point to make. I think that's a fair point to bring up. When you pass legislation, you cannot just pass it with a bunch of representatives from Salt Lake County, right? You have to get support from all over the state, which makes sense. You don't want to ignore rural issues or urban issues and vice versa and all of that, where you need to get full agreement on what's best for the state. So I think it is good policy to say that you need to gather signatures from it's not all of them. It's only 15 to 29, so that's just barely over half of the Senate. So you can still concentrate it fairly, highly along the Wasatch Front if you can add up 15 Senate districts along there and get those. And that's somewhere between 3,000 to about 6,000 signatures per Senate district that you get. Currently, organizers, according to the Salt Lake Tribune, believe they have enough signatures in 6 of those districts, but still need to meet their targets in 9 more.
And the deadline for that is April 15th, right? So this is why we're talking about 5 more days, because if they don't get the signatures, the referendum just fails on its face.
Yeah, and these signature gathering effort is funded. The Political Issues Committee, it's called Protect Utah Workers, that is funding this, has received about $2.6 million in donations. That does include some in-kind donations, but they got $1 million from the National Education Association. That is the National Teachers Union, plus some other in-kind donations and things for the tune of about $2.6 million. So this is a paid signature gathering effort, not per signature, but just there is funding behind this. And then there are some groups that are supporting taking signatures off of this after this deadline passes. So you mentioned the 3 days. Then remind me, Aaron, how many days after that do people have if they want to take their name off the petition?
Yeah, so if they're able to get the 140,000 signatures roughly, then after April 15th, once those have been verified, then there are 45 days for people to remove their signature from the petition. So if you sign the petition, you learn more about the bill, and you say, you know what, I actually like the bill, I don't want this thing to be taken away, you can take your signature off that petition. And there will likely be an effort by groups to go out and encourage people to take their signatures off. So if they can take enough signatures off that they get underneath the threshold, same issue, right?
Yeah.
The referendum fails. So so it's not just getting the signatures from the first point. You've got to keep that number of signatures on for another 45 days after you submit them all.
Yes, and I think that makes sense as well. Let's be honest, when people are asked to sign a petition, they might be in a hurry. Often, I'll sign it. Just want to be left alone. And I'm not taking any credibility away from the argument to sign it, but I think there's a valid case to say, I don't know if they were quite paying attention. It is fair to give them time to say, wait a minute, that's what I signed? I don't support that. I'm going to want to take that off. So there is a group that is working on that, Americans for Prosperity. This is a national organization, has an active chapter in Utah. I know them well, and they do a good job. They are running a campaign called Decline to Sign. They actually have a website. I've seen it, to where they're asking people to decline to sign, obviously, and then consider taking their names off. And I think this is a valid argument. So Kevin Green, he runs it here in Utah. He had a good quote, I think, in the Salt Lake Tribune. I'm just going to read that. He said, I think it protects taxpayers, meaning the system or the bill, HB 267. Unlike when private companies negotiate with unions, he said, with public employee unions, the taxpayer is the ultimate person who is being negotiated against, and we actually don't have any say as taxpayers when collective bargaining is happening. That was the end of the quote. I think that's a fair point. I wanted to make that clear.
And that was part of the reason why Representative Tusher brought the bill.
Correct. Yeah.
In the first place.
Yeah, because the definition of collective bargaining, as I understand it, is that it is exclusivity is what they're after. Meaning if they have collective bargaining, that means the only bargaining agent that can be discussing things and be at the table is that union. No one else can do it. They can still negotiate, but they don't have that exclusivity. And that's what the bill did, is it banned that exclusivity and opens up the process so more voices can be heard. That's what the proponents would say, for this issue and for the bill. We'll see how it goes. This is going to be interesting to see if they get to this deadline in about 5 days.
Yeah, and if they do, so if they're able to get the number of signatures, keep that number of signatures for the extra 45 days, then at that point, this goes on the 2026 ballot as an issue for voters to vote on. So it's not done just because they get the signatures. Voters actually have to vote on whether or not they want to repeal this. So all of the signature gathering, all this effort right now is just to get the question on the ballot. Now, the governor could move that up to the 2025 municipal ballot this November. there's a provision to do that, but it would most likely be on the 2026 ballot.
Yeah, I don't know if there's precedent for that. I'd be surprised, but likely 2026. I think I would certainly plan on, if this does get on, you will definitely hear about this as 2026 approaches. There will be a lot of money sent into the state, not only asking them to overturn this, but there will be a ton of money also into the state to vote against overturning 267. This is an ideological battle. There were articles about this in national press after this passed, Wall Street Journal and others, saying this is groundbreaking, positive news for conservative movement, anti-union movement around the country. Those forces will show up in Utah if this gets on the ballot, just as those that are contributing now to the signature gathering process have already shown up. They'll continue. I think this would be a multi-million-dollar issue in Utah if it's on the 26 ballot.
Yes.
And you'll probably you'll get a little tired of billboards on this, because they will definitely be there in 2026, aside from all the election stuff.
Well, it was our most controversial bill, probably our most controversial bill coming out of this last legislative session. So, if the signatures make it through, then we're not done with this discussion.
Nope, not done. We'll have to wait and see what next week brings. All right, in our final segment on today's Inside Sources, a new Utah law aims to give you, the consumer, more protections from companies and businesses that act deceptively. We'll go in on that next.
If your water heater's over 10 to 15 years old, congratulations. You've beat the average. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and I love hearing stories of people having water heaters that are really old and they're still doing their job. Unfortunately, most of us won't be that lucky. And when water heaters fail, it's usually in spectacularly inconvenient fashion. Whether it's an unexpected cold shower when we're already running late for work, or worse yet, coming home to a flooded basement, it's never fun. If you'd like to look into replacing your water heater before it fails, Any Hour Services is having a sale for any homeowners listening. Whether you're looking for a new tanked water heater or you want to see what upgrading to a tankless would cost, the plumbers at Any Hour Services can show you what options are available. And right now, you can save $400 on a tanked water heater or $1,200 on a tankless. If you think you might be interested, call Any Hour Services today and schedule your free estimate. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
If you've got a gas-powered engine, keep it running like new at every fill-up. Stable in-season protection is your engine's preventative medicine, cleaning and protecting the entire fuel system in season. In outdoor power equipment, prevent gum and varnish buildup that could cause a rough or non-running engine. For cars and trucks, increase fuel efficiency and power by removing deposits, ensuring your engine's long-term health. Stable outperforms the competition in independent lab testing. So at every fill-up, start with Stable.
When you switch to Progressive, you could save bundling your home and auto. Then you could put that money towards some of the surprisingly more expensive things in life.
May I help you? I just wanted to request a late checkout, please.
Of course. That's $30 per hour for up to 4 hours.
Huh. Okay, but if you can offer a late checkout, then that probably means no one is staying in that room. So if it's empty, maybe I can just stay a few extra hours.
Oh, aren't you adorable?
Life costs a lot, so bundle and you could save with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states.
When might you be buzzed? When you suddenly love everything.
You guys! I love this song! I love these nachos. I love our kickball league! Ugh! I love this guy! What's your name? You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzzed warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
I love your car. Is this real leather?
Harbor Freight knows time is money, so for our Spring Black Friday sale, we're getting straight to the deals. This weekend, you get 35% off jack stands, 56-inch roll cabs under $800, and 2,300 PSI electric pressure washers under $190. See? Straight to the point, so you can get straight to the savings. Whatever you do, do it for less at Harbor Freight. Valid until April 13th, 2025 while supplies last. Limitations apply.
For over 22 years, speaking on business on KSL News Radio has been a beloved tradition, celebrating our heroic business leaders and Utah consumers who have helped build one of the strongest state economies in the nation. Now, under the stewardship of the Salt Lake Chamber and hosted by Chamber President and CEO Derek Miller, the program continues to shine a spotlight on those who make Utah's business environment dynamic and thriving. With his expertise and passion, Derek brings the stories of our business community to life. As part of the Salt Lake Chamber, Speaking on Business is proud to continue its legacy of highlighting inspiring stories, trends, and special guests. Support Utah businesses now and be part of Utah's thriving economy. More information can be found at slchamber.com. That's slchamber.com.
This is Christian Staples with Arctic Spas. Way back in 1989, I started servicing hot tubs in Park City, and I learned the hard way in the freezing winter in the mountains that hot tubs are not built for Utah's harsh climate. I then found the Arctic Spa, the most northern manufacturer of hot tubs built specifically for the northern climates. Arctic Spas use perimeter insulation similar to your house where the outside walls are insulated. This allows us to utilize the excess heat from the motors to help heat the water and reduce your electric cost each month. Since then, we have sold 10,000 Arctic Spas here in Utah. We've learned that Arctic Spas last longer because they are built stronger. You can just feel the difference. Arctic Spas are easier to fix because we put access panels all the way around the spa, which makes it less expensive for you. Add this to the lower electric bills each month, and you end up with the least expensive hot tub to own over the long term. Arctic Spas, with stores covering all of Utah in Salt Lake, American Fork, and St. George, or online at arcticspasutah.com. Arctic Spas, the only spa built for Utah's harsh climate.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Utah consumers will soon have more protections from deceptive companies and businesses. Senate Bill 42, sponsored by State Senator Evan Vickers, goes into effect in less than a month. KSL TV investigator Matt Gephardt took a deeper look at what the law will do and how it gives you, the consumer, more power against companies doing illegal or unethical things. Let's start by listening to Matt Gephardt's report on the new consumer protection law and what it does for Utahns.
The new law strengthens your hand when dealing with deceptive or unfair business practices.
They basically said, we don't have anything in our system to enable you to return it.
Marlo Springer tried to return some speakers that came with a promised 100-day trial, but the company did not let him.
I was going to get some work done right here.
Eliza Allen paid a deposit for a tattoo before being ghosted by the artist.
Oh, good job.
Whitney Clyde paid a company for outdoor lighting that was not provided. These are 3 examples of countless stories where I have reported on a business doing something that could be considered a violation of Utah law, classified as a deceptive business practice. The hard part for consumers is that at the end of the day, they had to prove the company meant to break the rules, knowingly or intentionally.
There was this concept of, did you know that you were going to do this? Did you understand that what you were going to do was inherently deceptive?
Katie Haas is the director of Utah's Division of Consumer Protection. Her team worked with the Utah legislature to make it easier to hold bad business practices in Utah to account. Now, any deceptive act in a consumer transaction is illegal, regardless of intent. Proving intent to deceive was a high bar that let some bad actors off the hook, Haas says.
It doesn't really matter if you knew or should have known that what you were doing is deceptive.
The changes mean that if you encounter false advertising, hidden fees, unfulfilled guarantees, or any shady business behavior in Utah, it is easier to get help and get justice.
Companies have to take almost like a duty of care to be really careful in what they're doing so that they are not deceiving consumers.
The new law also provides clearer remedies for consumers to get their money back and also adds extra protections for vulnerable groups like senior citizens.
That's interesting. To be honest with you, I track a ton of bills at the legislature. I totally missed this one.
I know, I did
Senate
too.
Bill 42 by Senator Vickers. Great job, Senator Vickers. I didn't realize this had been done. The voting on it was unanimous. Never, obviously, you wouldn't think so. Got a single no vote. It went all through the chambers, and it looks like it's substantive good policy. Senator Vickers, he's been there for some time there. He's a great senator down in Cedar City. Anyway, I thought this is great. This is going to be, I was going to ask your legal opinion as an attorney. It sounds like this was about legalese, because the problem they had before is they had to prove the company broke the rules knowingly or intentionally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning you had intent.
Intent is hard to prove. It just is, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to show that somebody had a mindset to do something deceptive. And when you're dealing with a business, I mean, how easy, they showed, or they in the sound clip we listened to, they were talking about someone who was ghosted by a tattoo artist. Well, it'd be pretty darn easy for that tattoo artist to say, yeah, I fully intended to, and right? Like, how do you prove that that person did not actually have the intent to go through with it? It's very, very difficult. And this is actually a really great example of where the executive branch and the legislature worked well together, because we heard from Katie Haas, the director of Utah's Division of Consumer Protection. That's in the governor's office. That's on the executive side. And they worked with the legislature to come up with something that would work here for people. So now you don't have to prove the intent. You just have to prove that the action itself was misleading or deceptive. And that's a much lower bar. Makes it much easier for people to go out and prove that harm was done. So I think this is a good bill.
Yeah, so now any deceptive act in a consumer transaction is illegal regardless of intent. And so that's... Yeah, I think this is a good thing. I'm sure there are tons of people out there. They cited a few in that report that we listened to that have experienced something like this. I mean, you still have to prove some points to win your case, but I think this is a win. I don't think anybody wants to, see people deceptively taken advantage of.
Right.
And it'll be very interesting to see. It'd be fun to check back on this, in a year and see. Are there cases where this has made some difference? You'd hope so. Mm-hmm. But that's great reporting by Gephardt.
Yeah, and what they're trying to get at. You think about companies with hidden fees, and actually on the hidden fee side too. This is making me think about the president's press conference with Kid Rock, and where they want to go after concert venue, right, like the concert ticket thing.
Yeah, it was the scalping of tickets. Right?
Yeah, it's kind of a similar thing. You've got all these hidden fees that are popping up in a variety of ways that are just nickel and diming people to death, and so we're going to go after those. We're going to go after those hidden fees. We're going to go after unfulfilled guarantees. We're going to go after false advertising, right? All that kind of shady business behavior. And I love that they're doing that. Like Utah actually, if you really look at some of the details of how the executive and the legislative branch work together to try and protect Utahns against bad actors, they actually do a pretty good job of this. And the legislature is always very, I think, accommodating at trying to make sure that we are, protecting the people who need it.
I'm sorry I got a little distracted when you mentioned Kid Rock in the White House because I was thinking back to the picture I saw of the outfit he was wearing.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you caught that. It's like a red Elvis outfit, but it was phenomenal if that's what you're going for. But, at least he wasn't wearing a T-shirt and getting any heat from J.D. Vance for wearing a T-shirt. But he definitely had a collared shirt on. It was just... Anyway, I'd encourage you to take a look at it. It was quite colorful. Sorry, I don't mean to be distracted. As you mentioned, I'm distracted by several things today, in addition to the fact
do we need a quick Masters update?
As of 2:56 p.m., my guy, Rory McIlroy, is 3 under par after 12 holes.
Okay.
So leader's at 7 under, so he's in the hunt. Just in case anybody's wondering, doesn't have that live stream going on in the corner of their screen at their office. But anyway, back to the subject. I think, this is a good example of Utah forwarding good policy and passing good policy that I think this could be good model legislation for other states if they haven't done it, to where you can offer some greater protection for consumers.
Yeah. Another thing that Katie Haas said is that companies almost have to have like a duty of care and be really careful in what they're doing so they're not deceiving consumers. There's a fine line with that, right? If you put too much of a burden on companies and make it too onerous, then they won't want to do business here. But this is another area where they're looking at it saying, hey, people are being taken advantage of. We've got to make sure that we are protecting those people. So we are going to put a duty of care onto companies and say, if you offer a rebate, if you offer a guarantee, you better have a way to fulfill that. Yeah. Otherwise, you could be in trouble, which is good.
And I didn't look to see if there's any testimony in committee meetings against this bill. I mentioned the unanimous vote. Mm-hmm. There might have been pushback, but you bring up an important point. You don't want to push the envelope too far to where Utah is a business-unfriendly state,
right?
To where the businesses can't operate safely or successfully here with onerous rules. That does happen in other states. I see it actually live and in person in some work that I'm involved in that has to do with the state of California. Oh boy, you want to talk about harmful, anti-business laws there is just, it's almost weekly. There come up with some other idea that would drive businesses out of the state. But I'm rambling there. But yes, this looks like it strikes a good balance where we keep Utah as business friendly as it has been and continues to be. And that's something we want, because you want Utah to be business friendly at the right tune, because that attracts jobs, that keeps the economy strong. We all want places to work. You need to provide for your families, and that's what those jobs bring. And having a pro-business type of mentality in the Utah legislature makes a difference. We would not be where we are today if that wasn't the case. And it's important to remember that it wasn't always that case, meaning, if you go back to the 80s in Utah, the business environment here wasn't all that great. But there have been massive strides made to where Utah is a very business-friendly state and is a great place to do business, and why you see a lot of companies moving to Utah, despite what you might also read elsewhere. It's a very business-friendly state and a great place to live.
Yeah, I think I was talking with Natalie Gochner recently from the Kem Gardner Policy Institute, who said that in the last 35 years, 33 of those, we've had more in-migration than out-migration. And a lot of people are coming here because of job opportunities. They're coming because they see opportunity here in the state. So yes, we do want to protect that. It's really critical that we do it, but that we can do it in a way that also balances out protecting individuals and consumers from bad actors. Okay, well, thank you so much for tuning into today's show. This was fun, Rusty.
Yes.
Thanks for being here.
Rory's still playing well, in case you're wondering.
Join Leah Murray and Greg Skordas tomorrow, beginning at 1 p.m. for more political discussion. Next up, we're going to have Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News. Have a great day.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News.
Incidents. Maria Chaleos is live at the KSL National News Desk.
Jeff, a source telling the Associated Press that all 6 people aboard the helicopter have died, 3 of them children. Video from the scene shows the helicopter mostly submerged